There you go. Thanks, Mal.
I'm looking to see who, I keep hearing the bell, but it's hard for me to tell everybody.
Yeah.
Dominique's the last one. I don't know.
Riley came in. That's CR.
Good morning. How are you?
Morning. Hi, Shamron.
All right.
Catch up.
Okay.
Well, we're just
All right.
starting.
Yep. All right. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. Of course, my name is Jewell Tunstall. I got my license, I think 3 years ago. I worked for another brokerage as an agent and an assistant, and then moved to KW about a year and a half ago. And I work as an agent, but I also work as a transaction coordinator for other agents. If you have questions along the way, then please just let me know. Shout out, those of you online, just shout out that you have a question. So I think I asked Marissa and Shanae how long they've been in. If the rest of y'all can chime in and just tell me how long you've been licensed and how long you've been at Keller Williams.
Call on them by name because they don't want to interrupt each other or whatever.
Dominique, go ahead.
I've been licensed since July, and I've been with Keller Williams since that time.
And you are rocking it. Riley? Is she there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, good morning. I'm sorry I can't be there.
And I'm glad you're online.
Your question was just introducing ourselves, and
How long you've been licensing with KW?
so I am Riley. Hello. I have been licensed since July or August, and I've been with KW since I got my license.
And you are doing well too.
Thank you. Well, we've been working together, and it's been amazing.
Thanks. Right back at you. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, I'm good.
Do you want to introduce
Yeah,
yourself?
sure. My name is Amara Dugas. I joined Keller Williams, I would say maybe about 2 weeks ago or so.
Yeah.
I got licensed in January. I was actually at Long and Foster for a little while and switched over. So
Okay.
very excited.
Yeah. Oh, I'm happy to see you face to face.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm Jewel. So we've been
good.
working together.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Awesome. I started with another brokerage as well and came over here.
Okay.
So. Awesome.
And then we've got some more online. Did Shanae go? And did
I asked them before.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before everybody else.
Okay.
Just chatting.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So how many have completed transactions? I know Riley and Dominique have. Marissa and Shanae, have y'all completed a transaction?
I haven't.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Shanae, what about you? And then Mario.
Sorry, I'm driving. Can you repeat your question?
Oh, that's okay. I just want to know if you had completed any transactions.
No, ma'am, not yet.
Okay, all right. And then Amar, you're doing your first one now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right. All right, today we're going to talk about the process after you have a contract ratified. So you've done all these classes to lead you up to, getting ratified. And then now we're going to talk about once you're ratified. Oh my God, I did my little clicker. Well, y'all remind me if I so that just tells where we are today. And again, we're going to talk about timelines, best practices, risk avoidance, referrals and reviews, post-close follow-up, any ahas. That's our agenda for the day. All right. Mara, you want to read that for us? Sorry, you're the only one in
Yeah,
person,
sure.
so you might get picked on a lot today.
Yeah, real estate transactions aren't particularly trouble-free. It's a strenuous and trying time that requires all the attention and effort you can command. Make sure you know.
Yes, and that is very, very true. Transactions take a lot of focus, a lot of detail, and making sure you have timelines and you're following those timelines. All right, let's see. We're gonna start with timelines today. Now we're gonna go talk about contract deadlines, buyer timelines, and seller timelines. If you have a sample contract that you can look at, it's helpful to kind of look through and see where it shows you the deadlines. If you don't, that's okay, but you make sure to jot down what those deadlines are so that you can then go back and look at a contract and see what they are. All right, so I'll say that just as getting a lead doesn't make a person your client, getting a contract doesn't mean you're gonna close. You need to do everything you can to make sure that happens, but just so you know, there are terminations. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, about usually how they can fall through and what you can do to stay on top of it. Communication is a key to making sure that the contract doesn't terminate. Communication with your clients and communication with all the people that are involved in a transaction. Just because you're ratified doesn't mean you can stop talking to your clients or stop communicating with your clients. You have to keep making sure that you're in communication with them, and then talk to them and decide what's the best way for communication. Text, phone call, email, everybody's different. And so you want to see what works best for them and see which way you'll get answers back the quickest. Let's see.
Yeah, they,
Okay. All right, before we get into that, let's talk about all the people that are involved in a transaction. We know there's the buyer, there's the seller, there's the buyer's agent, there's the listing agent. But there's a whole bunch other people that are involved. So I'm gonna write these up here just as we think about them. So of course we have the buyer. And we have the seller. Buyer's agent, I'm gonna abbreviate listing agent. What other people would be involved in a transaction? You can just shout it out.
Title company
Yep.
and her name financing, their financial loan cards, so lender.
Any others?
Appraisal.
Yep, you're gonna have an appraiser. You are.
Right.
But all those inspectors.
septic and well, if those apply. And any optional, like radon.
Seems to be more and more popular.
Mm-hmm.
People are using that more and more.
HOA.
Good one. I was hoping somebody was gonna say that. HOA, you have to be in contact with that person.
Also, maybe this goes back to inspectors like mold possibly.
Could be, or it could be, let's talk about like, contractors. So it could be a mold, people taking care of mold.
Specialty inspectors.
Yeah.
Structural.
About, painters. Handyman. Be all kinds. What about a cleaner? A house cleaner? There's a whole bunch of people that are involved, and that's why communication is key, because you really got to make sure you have communication with all these people and make sure all the pieces, it's like a puzzle, basically. You need to make sure all the pieces fall into place. Another one could be insurance agents. You may want to refer your buyer to insurance agents. So yeah, you want to keep a list for the inspections, and the contractors, the house cleaners, lender, appraiser, title. You want to have a list of trusted partners that you work with and that you work well with and that you trust. Because your buyers and sellers are going to be asking you for those people. I just had a possible seller ask me, we were looking at her house and the awning on her back of her house needed to be removed. She looked and said, who do you have? Who do you know that could do that? So they're going to be asking you for all kinds of people. So if you have a list and you have a relationship with them, then it's real easy to give them that list. All right, so if we look at our list, and let's see if we can decide if you're the buyer's agent, who are you gonna communicate with? Title, lender, appraiser, inspectors, most likely home inspector. Guess that would be right on. Are you gonna be in communication with the HOA person if you're the buyer's agent? No. What about contractors?
Yes.
Yes, because you may want to, like, if you get an inspection report and you get a bunch of repairs, you may want to pull an contractors to come and look and give the buyer quotes on how much it would cost, and that would help them to decide what repairs they want to ask for. House cleaner?
Possibly.
Yeah, possibly. They might want the house cleaned right before they move in. All right, what about seller? Are you gonna have a relationship with the title as a listing agent or as a seller? Yes. Lender?
Oh, yeah.
They're looking at me like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna be in contact with the lender, because you want to make sure everything is rolling. Everything's is being done correctly and in the right timing. Appraiser? Yeah, because they're gonna reach out to the listing agent in order to get access to the home. For inspections, the seller is responsible for doing the termite, the septic, and the well inspections, unless it's otherwise stated. And then HOA, yes,
Mhm.
you gotta get information from the HOA, and you have to get the HOA docs in order to send this on to the buyer. What about contractors or sellers?
Yep.
Yeah, because if you wanna make repairs or get things done before you're ratified, before you go on the market, then you wanna have a good relationship with contractors. And then you also might, well, hopefully you will, get the house cleaned.
And BA and buyer's agent and list agents talk to each other.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
lot.
These two are in communication a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you can see, there's a lot of overlap. And so it's really good to have your inspectors and your contractors and your house cleaners, all that, because you're gonna need them for both sides. Yes, ma'am.
You know, the HOA, at what point that you need to order, because sometimes it take a while.
It does.
So soon as you got like a contract ratified,
Mm-hmm.
We should order
Yes.
right away, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, order them right away so you can get them quickly and get them to the buyers quickly.
Some agents order it right when it's going and coming soon.
Mhm.
And they'll put it in supplemental documents. So people have it and can look it over. So as soon as you're ratified
Mhm.
and they confirm, that's their 3 days.
Oh.
You don't hold up a lot of time.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, good.
In regards to HOA documents, what if, your HOA president is not very clear understanding what the resale certificate is? I'm having that issue right now, with getting my documents, and they seem like kind of clueless, and I don't know, I'm just trying to, I looked it up, and I told them this is like the code, Virginia code, it's required, and they just still seem kind of unsure, so,
Did you order the HOA doc?
yeah, I have all
through
that,
the,
yeah.
through the company that? has
Well,
the
it's through
agreement?
the
Because it should be
president.
included in there, right?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll
but
look
I
at that.
had, if you remember Carterham,
Yeah.
the River Road House, I had one recently that had an HOA, but it was more community covenants. And they did not issue a resales disclosure, so, or resale certificate. So depending on what kind of HOA you have, maybe they don't. And I know we talked
Okay.
about a resale certificate, that's
Yeah.
probably why they're confused.
Okay,
Is yours a full-on HOA or more like
It's-
they keep the entrance nice? and-
yeah, it's keep the entrance nice, there's not really much more to it than that, it's more, so,
They probably don't do one then.
okay.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Now that we know everybody who's involved, we're gonna look at our timeline. Now, this is a very basic, fair timeline. It'll
Yeah,
get,
it's like-
it'll get more full as we go. But before we talk about what the deadlines are, let's think about how we should communicate those deadlines to our clients. Again, we already talked about, you can, make sure whether text, email, or phone call is the best way. Especially if you have a phone call, do you think it's a good idea to follow up with, an email? I
Yeah.
think it is, yeah, because when you're having a phone call, there's no like written documentation of what you're talking about. And so if you follow up with an email, you have in an email, we talked about this and that, and this is where we're going here or there. So even if they say a phone call is best, it's good to follow up with an email. Just for your own
See why I-
protection.
Yeah,
Yeah, for your own protection. Let's see. Let's look at the timeline. Right now, it has contract acceptance, inspection period ends, and closing. So inspection is the very first thing that you're gonna want to make sure you hop onto as soon as you're ratified.
EMD.
Oh, EMD, you're right, sorry. EMD is the first thing, because EMDs are due between what days? You all know, like, it's like, whatever you put in the
3 to
contract, but
5.
it's like 3 to 5 days. And you want to make sure that you communicate with your buyer how they can turn in that EMD, depending on which title company you're working with. You want to give them instructions or have them call the title company and make sure they're turning that in on time. And then the next big one is inspection, because you only have a window of, it's usually like 7 to 10 days, depending on what's in the contract. But within that time period, you need to have the buyer choose an inspector. Then you need to schedule the inspection, make sure it's okay with the seller for that date and time. Then you do the inspection, and then after the inspection, you need to go over the report with the buyer. If there's any repairs that they want to have done, then you need to kind of go through that and pick and choose and figure out what they want. to have done. Sometimes, and we talked about this before, that with the contractors, you might want to have contractors come out and give an estimate so the buyer knows what they want to ask for and what they don't want to ask for. And then you have to get the repairs request to the listing agent by the deadline. So that's a lot to do in 7 to 10 days. You know, if you can get an inspection done pretty quickly, then you should have plenty of time. Sometimes you butt up right up against that, that ending time. And so you have to make sure that you get, what happens if, say you had 7 days on the contract and it's day 8 and you have not turned in the repairs request yet? Anybody know? Anybody who's been through a transaction? What happens if you don't turn in the repairs request in the window?
Seller isn't obligated to fix anything.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Good job.
Yep. Thank you, Tamara. Yeah, so that's a really important deadline to make sure that you get those requests in before then. And then after you turn that in, the seller has 7 days that they can respond. They can either sign it and say, okay, we'll do all of this, or they can mark through it and say, we'll do something, or they can offer a credit, or they can say, no, I'm not, you know, I'm not going to fix anything. I'm not going to offer a credit. And then some negotiations usually go back and forth between the listing agent and the buyer's agent, seeing if you can come to an agreement between the buyer and the seller. All right.
And then if you can't come to a conclusion, you have 2 days to, at the second day, either party can release the contract or withdraw.
Right.
Yeah, release it.
And we'll talk about that more later, but that
Okay.
is one of the biggest reasons that it terminates.
Okay, I didn't know if that was coming up.
Yeah, that a contract can terminate. Let me see if I'm caught up with where I were, what I want to make sure I included.
And I would recommend that as soon as you ratify, you go through your contract and you put in all the deadlines and you make sure your buyer or seller knows those deadlines, especially with the buyers say, we put 3 days, you have to have your EMD and 3 days is this date or whatever. But put them all on your calendar, even if you have a TC, it's your license on the line and you're ultimately responsible. The TC is gonna help. But you don't know if the TC gets an emergency, is sick, has a, kid in the hospital, whatever. You need to be able to know what your deadlines are. So I recommend always putting those on your calendar.
There we go. So this is the timeline with added in earnest money. That first timeline, I have that first.
I don't know.
And then the inspections, you're informing them, then you're doing the inspections, and then you have to send the inspection report. Okay, so that's why the inspection is a big contingency. Also, within that time that you're doing the inspection, if you are we're just talking about the buyer's timeline right now, you are working with the lender. And there are timelines within that. The buyer has to have completed their formal loan application within 7 days of ratification. Please stay on top of your buyers when doing that. I worked a transaction one time when we thought the buyer was doing what they were supposed to be doing, and we got like 3 weeks in and checked back in with the lender, and they had not completed their loan application yet. Thankfully, it worked out. We extended the closing date and listing agent gave a little grace, but they were not happy that happened. So, don't, that's why I say you're the conductor of it all, even though you have a lender. You need to keep checking in with the lender, keep checking in with the clients to make sure everybody's doing what they need to do. So that 7-day application is important. And then the appraisal needs to be ordered within 15 days. A lot of agents will ask the lender to wait on the appraisal until after inspection negotiations. Because, and like we said, inspection can cause termination. It's a big reason for terminations. And so you don't want the buyer to have to pay for the appraisal if it's not gonna go through. So wait until the inspection contingency is done.
Can I add something to
Yep.
that? So the contract states that the buyer is responsible / buyer's lender to order the appraisal, like Jewell said, and I just had this come up recently where the inspection had some things and I wasn't sure we were gonna work through it. And I did say, hold off on the appraisal, but the key is the contract says it has to be ordered. It doesn't say it has to be completed. So you can still order it for like a certain number of days out. Like I knew where we were in the inspection period. And if we had 7 days, we could still order the appraisal, but not to be done until a certain day. So technically, we're in compliance ordering it, but it doesn't have to be completed. So that's kind of like a little clarification on that.
Okay.
A lot of people think it has to be done by day 15. It doesn't, just ordered.
Yeah.
And that's 15 days from ratification.
Correct.
Yes.
Everything, almost everything is from ratification. Yeah,
And you start counting the day after ratification.
correct. That's
So, like,
day
if
one.
it's- Like if we're, say we ratified on the 2nd and it's a 7-day inspection contingency, that 7 days ends on the 9th, right, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th,
Yeah.
9th, yeah.
And what I always do, just because I have known people to miscount, it happens. They might miss that repair request by that one day. So I always also put on my calendar, like 2 days before, inspection repair request due in 2 days. So if I'm like, oh yeah, I got that report, it was a Saturday, I haven't gotten to it yet. I always give myself that reminder and I actually put the date the day before, inspection due tomorrow. Just so that if I have a last minute, oh my gosh, I gotta get that done.
Right.
Because you do not want to miss that, because you could be paying for those repairs, or you could have a penalty on your license for missing that for your client.
And just know that this is bare minimum.
Yeah.
This timeline. My transaction checklists are front and back. Front and back of a page, but I put a lot of detail into mine. I put exact dates on there. And then I put all those dates in my calendar. Because it's a lot to remember and it's a lot to communicate with others. So write your timelines that
Yeah.
work for you. I am more of a like up and down, this like kind of boggles my brain a little bit. But it could work for you.
Yeah.
So write your transaction checklists and timelines the way it works for you. Just make sure you put in as much detail as you can. Who needs to be communicated, what the dates are on the deadlines, what documents you need for each of those. Because even after appraisal, even though this is a buyer again, even though the seller is responsible for doing the termite, the well, and the septic, you as the buyer's agent need to make sure you're getting those inspection reports. So you might need to reach out to the listing agent and say, have these inspections been scheduled? When are they scheduled for? When do you think you'll have the report to me? And then another, well, I'll wait on that. When I get to the seller side, I'll talk about that. I'm jumping around a little bit now. And then you also will need to schedule a final walkthrough and closing. And you also need to review the CD when it comes out. You want to make sure, like the purchase price is correct, the deposit is on there, any seller credit is on there. Anything the buyer might be paying for, they might be paying for their inspection at closing, so you need to make sure that's on there. So this is just a bare minimum of a buyer's timeline. And in case you're completely overwhelmed by all of this, a TC can help. Hiring a TC can help you schedule things. They can help you keep timelines, can reach out and ask for documents or follow up on documents. They can send documents to parties, that are involved or they can also send documents. If you give them access to your MLS, they can send documents to be signed. They can keep a check on the appraisal. They can ask for inspection reports. They can review the CD, but it's also important for you to review it as well. So if you did ever hire a TC, I encourage you not to just hand things off and let them handle it all.
Right.
And the TC will be in contact with you a lot. So it's important to respond in a timely manner for this.
And it's okay. I know a lot of people say, well, I want to learn the process, or I like to, be involved for my clients, and you can get both
Oh,
of
no.
those done. You can get both of those done, using a TC. But, for me, with everything else going on, I like to know someone else has eyes on it. They're helping keep me in check. And also, you can either use that time to go find your next deal in business or have more time with your family. And I know Jewell is so organized, and so, sometimes she'll be like, hey, heads up, I need this. Just a reminder, I still need this. And so it helps kind of keep me in check. It's just uploading some of the documents to command, not things that are gonna throw the whole thing off. But it's good to have someone else helping keep you in line. And whether Jewell or someone else, yeah, it definitely helps.
And I'm sure all TCs do this. They will include you on all
Yeah.
emails. And like Dominic, if you don't mind me saying that, Dominic and I work together. And she said that she wanted to learn the process as we went along. And so I told her that, I will include her on all emails, so she'll see when I'm checking in, what I'm asking for. And if by chance I have to make a phone call, I'll let her know that who I called and why I need to do that. Most of the time, things are dealt with through email and text. I text a lot back and forth with my agent, but yeah. So you will learn the process even if you hire a TC. All right, let's talk about the documents for a buyer transaction. What documents do we need for a transaction? What do you need before you go see houses? Yes, you will need pre-approval, yeah.
And a buyer.
Yeah.
Buyer broker agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah, the buyer broker
You got
agreement. Yeah, the pre-approval. Those are the two big things that you need. When you're getting the buyer broker agreement signed, you can go ahead and get the Vesta disclosure signed.
Agency,
What was that?
the document is they like for the buyer.
Yeah, the buyer broker agreement. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe the agency, like you work for them. Do we need to?
That's the buyer broker agreement, right?
I'm sorry.
She said the agency that we work for them,
Uh-huh.
that's in the buyer broker agreement.
Yes.
right? Yeah, that's part of the buyer broker agreement, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the, summary of residential.
Disclosure, property disclosure?
Yes, property disclosure, thank you. So you would need to get it's called the sum one. And I have lots of agents, brand new agents ask what's a sum one. But in the, transaction desk, it's 3 pages. And then the RPD is also attached to it, but you don't need to get the RPD signed until that you're under contract. But you can go ahead and get the sum one done, the shared space disclosure and the vested disclosure signed with the buyer broker agreement. That way you have all those before you even start. Then once you are putting in an offer, you're gonna do the purchase agreement. And then there should be a residential property disclosure in the MLS under attachments or under, I can't remember, it says little notebook pages right underneath the picture. I can't think of what it's called. Anyhow, the listing agent should put that in the MLS with the seller's signature. So you need to pull that out and attach it to the purchase agreement and have the buyer sign that as well, because when you send your contract to the listing agent, they'll want you to send the RPD as well. And then you could have a lead-based paint disclosure, depending on when the house was built. And then you'll want the lender letter we talked about. You'll want to include that when you send your contract to the listing agent. So those are the main documents that you want to make sure that you have when you're ratified, that all of those documents are part of the contract. Right?
I think you might have, lead-based paint check to see if they built before 1978.
Yes. Yeah.
And also, it's not all the truth. Sometimes it's other agent, they require you to do, sign anyway. But just make sure that, sometimes, I think that I work with other company, they require to do even that, not just before 78, but after 78.
Really?
They need you to sign too, so,
Oh, I've never had that.
yeah.
Never had that happen.
Long and Foster, I think they always just ask for
Mhm.
it.
Oh, okay.
In terms of
And,
that's,
what other thing that yeah, make sure that if you, you are list, if you buy agent, you make sure the listing agent sign first, not to you to sign.
For the lead-based paint?
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's a lead-based paint required, that will also be in, what is it called, Patrice? That, what, underneath the picture in the MLS, the little.
Oh, it
papers.
says supplemental
Supplemental,
documents.
thank you.
But some agents do forget, just like they forget RPD, so you may
Yeah.
have to ask them.
Yeah,
Right,
they
yeah.
always just put it on the list, but sometimes they don't,
Right.
Yeah. So know that you have to have an RPD. If it's not in there, ask for it. And then if the home is built before 1978, you have to have the LVP, so ask for it if it's not in there. Yeah. Did you have a question, Lauren?
yeah, so for the vested disclosure, so I understand on the seller side, the purpose of that, but on the buyer side, because possibly the buyer is not gonna use vested for settlement, so.
It's just basically saying that they are in our office, that they're affiliated with.
Oh, just so they know,
Keller
Yeah.
Williams.
because they're part of that transaction.
Yeah.
Even if they don't use either ACM or Vesta.
Okay,
They
so
have to have
buyers and sellers needed sign that vested because,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And now the listing, well, we'll get there too, but the listing does not need the shared space disclosure, just the buyer. Needs that. Yeah. All right, any questions on the buyer timeline? Anybody online have a question? Are y'all following along online? Is everybody okay over there?
Yes, all good.
Yes, we're good. Thank you,
Okay.
Jewel.
Awesome. All right, let me make sure I did not leave anything out for the buyers before we move on to the sellers. Does anybody need a break? Do we need to take a quick break? Yeah, we can take a quick break before we get into the seller timeline. Let's do myself. I'll be right back. While I can.
5 minutes?
Yeah. while I can. Did you sign in?
I'm sorry.
Did you sign in? See where we are with the slides. We'll talk about this slide just a little bit. It's just kind of giving you some common interaction points, like when is it good to communicate? Communication of deadlines we've talked about, so you want to make sure that you're talking with your buyer to make sure that they know when deadlines are so that they are aware. It's really a good idea to give them a list of timelines or a list of deadlines at the beginning of the transaction. You can put that, maybe make up a email right when you're ratified, congratulations email. And in that email, I would include a list of deadlines. So they're very aware of what's expected of them. Make sure you're communicating with all the other parties, title, lending. Sometimes I feel like the lenders or my contact at the title companies think I'm bugging them, but you know, I like to check in a lot, and just make sure things are going smoothly. I have on my calendar, like halfway through the contingency, you know, from the from the ratification to the closing, I do a file check and I check in with all the people involved. Even if I'm representing the listing agent or if I am the listing agent, I will also email, and I will email everybody, and in that email, I will include the buyer's lender and the buyer's title people, as well as the seller's title people, and the buyer's agent. I include everybody, and then I ask for everybody to give an update, just so we can kind of see, make sure we're all on the right track. All right, one thing I did not mention is when when it's time to do a home inspection, give your buyers a couple of home inspectors. Does anybody know why it's important for you to give them choices rather than to say, go use this inspector?
Yeah, I mean, if you said just use this one, I'm not sure what the proper term is, but basically it could look like you're getting like, kickback.
Yeah, could look like you get some type of kickback from that. Also, if they happen to not like that one inspector that you sent them, then they're mad at you. But if you give them choices, then they can call both, 2 or 3 of them and make their choice about it. Let's see, make sure scheduling and communication with inspectors and listing agents. So if you're scheduling an inspection, make sure you communicate that to the listing agent to let them know you'll be in the home, or else if the seller's still living there, you got to make sure it's okay, works out with their schedule. And then when you're sending amendments or inspection reports to the other side, title or lending, make sure you include people in those emails. Additional questions to think about. When am I reminding the buyers to not make big purchases? When am I communicating them to transfer utilities and how to do it? That thing in front of it. Am I communicating? With the Zoom thing over top of it, I can't see. How do I negotiate repairs? When am I communicating that information? And when do I touch base with the lenders, the title company and listing agent? Again, so that you want to make sure that you're communication. So you know what's going on and you can communicate that to your buyer or your seller and make sure that they know what's going on. All right, so let's see what's next. We talked about documents, what documents are needed for a buyer. Templates. Yeah, I want to talk about templates. I have a lot of email templates because you're going to find that you're going to be emailing the same thing every transaction. And so if I send an email and then I find that I send it again in another transaction, I will make a template for it so that you can just pop it into an email and it saves you some time. You know, there's a template, I have a template for when a buyer is ratified or when a seller is ratified. I have a template to introduce myself to the lender or the other agent on the other side, a template to send the contract to title. So there's lots of different templates that you can make that will help you save you time.
And where do you store your templates?
In Gmail. I don't have a Gmail up right now. It's hard for me to. Let me pull up my Gmail real quick and then I can kind of see if I can tell you.
Sorry, I had to move up.
Oh, you're
because
fine.
I have problem with my ear.
Oh, okay, you're fine, yeah. All right, so to do a template, you would go to compose. And then there's 3 dots at the bottom. It says more options. and then you go to templates. I have so many templates. Let me see at the bottom. Save draft as a template. So you would, when you go to compose, you write up what you want to say in your template, in the email, and then you go to the three dots, and you go to templates, and you go save draft as template, and it'll allow you to name it. And so then, if you already have a template, you go to compose, and then you go to those three dots, and you click on the template that you've made, and it automatically pops into your email. That was a really quick tutorial, but I hope it helped.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's see. All right, so there's our buyer timeline at the top. Let's go through this. All right, we're gonna start with the seller transaction. Again, if you look over here, we've got all these people again that we need to involve in our seller transaction. All the ones that have the S next to it. Of course, the buyer and the seller, the buyer's agent, listing agent are always there. So again, we have a lot of people that we need to keep in the loop, that we need to communicate with. Okay. Now, at the bottom here, we have the seller's timeline. It looks very similar to the buyer's, but the first thing you need to do once you're under contract, once you're under ratification, is mark your listing in the MLS as pending. You have, write it down somewhere. If you don't have this little cheat sheet, I advise you to Google CVR MLS cheat sheet. CVR MLS cheat sheet. It tells you, it gives you kind of like timelines with when it's active, when the market closed, sold, coming soon, expired, leased, purchase pending, or pending, release, temp withdraw. So you have to mark if you're the listing agent, you have to mark your listing pending within 5 days of it being ratified. And I would advise you to do it right away so you don't forget. Because you will be fined if you don't do that. All right.
What about, putting a, switching like on your sign, like for sale to pending, is that a requirement at all?
All right, let's see if that's on here. I think this is just for the MLS. I don't think you have to. Yeah, because I think, now that I think about it, different agents do it differently. Some will mark it under contract or put under contract or pending on their sign. To show that it went fast, under contract fast. Some won't do that because then they'll keep getting phone calls from buyer's agents or from buyers about their listing. So just depends on what you want to do. So no, you don't have to. You don't have to do that. All right. Get that one.
Sorry, this should be called, it's called which listing status should you use? Is that the one, or is there a different?
Yes.
Okay.
Which listing status should you use? Yep. That's it. Right. Okay, so let's go through the seller timeline. We talked about the mark listing within 5 days. What's another one on here? We just talked about what you should do as soon as, if it's in an HOA community, you should order your HOA docs. If you haven't already done so, you should order your HOA docs right after it's ratified, because sometimes it'll take a little while for those to come back. And then once they're back, you have to send them to the buyer's agent, and then the buyer has 3 days. That's a an important deadline. They have 3 days to review the HOA docs and to question anything or to get out of the contract if they wish. Because of the HOA docs, that is one reason that a buyer can terminate, is if there's something in the HOA docs that they don't like. So you want to get that to them as soon as possible and get past that 3 days.
And day one is the day after they receive it? Well,
Yes,
okay.
yes. Yeah. Also not on here, is the EMD. You want to make sure you get a receipt from the buyer's agent that the EMD has been turned in. Again, it'll depend on what's in the contract. So they could have 3 to 5 business days or 3 to 5 days to turn in their EMD. On the contract, it just says days, so that is calendar days, unless you put business days in there. But again, you want to make sure you get some type of confirmation that that has been turned in. You don't want to forget about that and just assume that it was turned in. All right, the inspection, so you want to get notification from the buyer's agent when they have scheduled the inspection. And then you need to let the seller know about that to make sure it's okay with them and then confirm with the buyer's agent. And then you also want to keep track of the days that they have to give you the repairs request. Usually 7 to 10 days, depending on what's in the contract, but put on your calendar that the repairs request is due by, you know, whatever that day is. So that you can know, okay, well, they haven't gotten me any inspections yet, and you'll know when that timeline is done and know that, you know, they won't be asking for repairs.
I always put 14 days because like sometimes, 10 day might be
It can be, yeah,
turn
yeah.
around so too quickly.
It can be, yeah,
Yeah.
it can be. However, if you're in multiple offer situations, sometimes
Yeah.
getting inspection done faster is appealing to the seller.
Yeah.
It just, depends on what situation you're in, but yeah, you could put 14 days. All right, so then once you get that repairs request, if they're asking for any repairs, you have 7 days to go over that with the seller and to respond to the buyer's agent. So make sure you leave yourself enough time. Again, the seller might want to get contractors out there to give estimates to decide what they are willing to repair or what amount of credit they're willing to offer. So you can go back, if they give you a list of repairs, you can go back and say, in lieu of these repairs, we will offer this amount of credit. That's when some negotiations go back and forth between the buyer's agent and the listing agent.
Could you repeat again? So the repair, so once the repair request is given to the seller agent, they have 7 days to respond back.
Yes,
Buyer.
yes.
And then how many days after that does the buyers have to get back?
I don't think there's a timeline on that. But I mean, that's when a lot of back and forth goes. You either decide or you say, yeah, okay, we'll accept that, or you go back and negotiate back and forth. But I don't think it's stated in the contract. Let me double check. I have a contract here with me. I don't want to steer you wrong. So. And also it's important on here, I just noticed if you don't put a number next to the amount of days, it automatically is 10 days. All right, seller shall respond in writing to purchaser's repair request within 7 days of its receipt. Continue to negotiate the terms of the repair request during the negotiation period. Yeah, there's no other. If you don't, yeah, there's no other timeline after that. Okay, so that is the inspection. All right, so then the appraisal, again, we said that it's supposed to be ordered within 15 days. That doesn't mean it has to be scheduled by that time. But it does need to be ordered, and then once that order is placed and the appraisal company will reach out to the listing agent. So if you're a listing agent, the appraiser will be reaching out to you to schedule the appraisal. Sometimes they will schedule it through showing time, but most of the time they'll reach out to the listing agent to get access and to schedule that. And then get the results back. If we jump back real quick to the buyer, once the buyer receives the appraisal results, the buyer's agent can just let the listing agent know the appraisal came in and it met value. You don't have to tell them the exact amount. If it does come in low, the seller low appraisal, if it does come in low, then if there's no appraisal gap written into the contract, then negotiation will start with lowering the price or meeting in the middle, or, you know, but if whatever gap is left, the buyer has to bring that amount on to closing.
This might be something off topic, but maybe not. If a appraisal's waived, the seller can, or the buyer can still request an appraisal.
Yeah,
Right,
they
okay.
can, yeah,
Okay.
they can request and pay for the appraisal, even though
Just
it's not.
for the knowledge, right?
Okay, yeah.
Excuse me. When appraisals come lower than that, you have to talk to see that who come up with, if the
Right.
seller like willing, well, if the buyer really like the house, they, you know, and so they
will-
have to put more money to
Mhm.
it to
Right,
match with the, yeah.
right, and
Or
sometimes.
you
there's a-
can do it in between if the seller willing to come
Yes.
down.
Yes,
Yeah.
right, yeah, if the seller's willing to lower the
Mhm,
price, yes, to either match the appraisal or
Mhm.
make it less money that the buyer has to bring to the table. But some buyers will put in the contract.
Yeah.
That they'll, you know, cover a $5,000 appraisal gap, and if it's more than that, then you have to start negotiating. Yep. All right, then you need to schedule the seller signing appointment, and they usually sign a couple days before the buyer closes. So you'll want to work with the closing company and the seller to see when they can come in to sign their paperwork. And before they sign, you have to review the CD again and make sure everything is correct on that before they go in to sign. And then once the buyer has closed, you, I skipped a really important part. I'm sorry. We're not at closing yet. Sorry, back up. The termite well and septic inspections. The listing agent and the seller is responsible for paying, unless it's in the contract, otherwise, is responsible for paying for the termite, the well, and the septic inspections. Those inspections need to be within 30 days of closing. So if you have a 45-day closing, like from ratification to closing, don't schedule your termite well and septic until it's in that 30-day window of closing. Just recently, we had a termite that was done, a month before, because it had been had been ratified and then released and back on the market. And they had to redo the termite, had to do it again, because it has to be done within a 30-day window. So make sure you schedule that in the correct amount of time. And then you're gonna get the results and you're gonna send that to the buyer's agent. And the termite needs to go to title and to lender. A lot of times these inspections will be paid at closing. So you need to make sure you get invoices for those and send those to title. So they can add that. And then when you check the CD, when you review the CD, make sure that those invoices are included in there.
Termite, what was the other one you said has to go to title lender? Termite inspection?
Termite inspection, the report has to go to the lender. Usually. But don't always make sure, it's clean and looks good. The invoices are the only things that have to go to the lender. You can send all the reports to title, that's fine, but
Okay, so the lender does not need to receive the termite inspection report, they do.
they do not, unless they ask for it. I do not
Okay.
send, it does need to go to title because it has to be signed at closing.
Okay,
Sometimes a lender will ask me for it and I'll send it to them. And that reminds me, I'm gonna write this down so I don't forget. I want to go back to, inspection credits for the buyer. So I'm gonna go back to that in a minute. Let me finish this first. Okay, so termite wells, septic, if they apply, termite you always have to have done unless it's a new build. A new build will come with they put out some type of termite prevention and they give you documentation on that. But termite always has to be done. Well and septic is, depending on if they have well and septic or not. All right, so then we're going to schedule the signing appointment, review the CD, make sure all those invoices are on there. And then once it's closed, you need to mark closed in the MLS, and the seats must be marked closed within 7 days of the closing date, and that's on the cheat sheet as well. So that is the listing timeline. And then to do as I did before with the buyers, just in case you wanted to hire a TC, the things that they could help you with is they can order the HOA docs for you. They can check on the EMD, make sure that's been turned in by the buyer. They can schedule the termite well septic inspections, get the invoices to title, check on the appraisal, see if that's come in yet, and they can review the CD. Just to give you an idea of how that can help you to save a little bit of time.
for scheduling the signing, does the listing agent, between the buying agent schedules it for the buyers and the listing agent schedules it for the listing?
Yeah.
Or is how is it?
Yeah.
No, this was. Nothing new. You have some to give out after?
I do.
Okay, great. I was just checking. Okay.
Here, you want one?
Yeah, and I'll make a copy, because I'll put them in the PC office. Gotcha, thank you. It looks the same. Oh, yeah, I see, yeah. Okay.
Any questions on the seller timeline? Again, these timelines are skeletons. No, that's just kind of like the bare minimum. So it's up to you to make your own timeline, fill in all the details that you need to fill in who communication needs to go to, what documents you need, where those need to go. The biggest documents you're gonna have is, for the listing side. You will need, and when you sign with them, the listing agreement, the residential property disclosure, the lead-based paint, if it's applicable, and the vested disclosure. You do not need the shared space disclosure with it if you're the listing agent. Just
Either
the
with the sum one.
You do not need the sum one, that's from the buyer. Yeah. And then, so then when you get documents from a buyer's agent with an offer, they're gonna need the purchase agreement and the RPD, which, like we said, when you put a listing in the MLS under supplements, you want to add the RPD, already signed by the seller. The buyer's agent will get it signed by the buyer. And then include that when they send the offer to you. And they also should include a lender letter or proof of funds if it's a cash offer. But you want to make sure you either have a lender letter or a proof of funds so you know that these buyers can buy the house, they can pay for it. Mhm. And then there's always usually addendums, repairs request addendum. Sometimes there's an addendum to change the closing date, sometimes there's an addendum to fix a name or a city on a contract. And you always need to make sure all of those are uploaded to Command. For compliance. Those are the documents. Talked about templates. Here we are on the slides. These are just making sure you're communicating again. You see a trend here, communication is key in transactions, communication of deadlines, communication of contract to other parties, communication of a list of recommended contractors, movers, cleaners, then contract to the title company, scheduling and communication with inspectors and buyer's agents, and sending amendments or inspection reports to the other side, title and living. So there's a lot of back and forth, and you have to make sure whenever you get a new document that it goes to the correct people. You need to make sure it's signed by both sides, and then it goes to the people that need it. Any addendum that has money involved, like a credit, some type of seller credit or closing costs, needs to go to the lender. After that, documents. There's our timeline. Again, make your own timeline, what works best for you. There's also in Command. You can keep contingencies there if you want to keep track of dates in there. Once you make an opportunity in the offers and commissions tab, in the middle, it'll say add contingencies. And you can put like inspection, appraisal, any type of responses, and they have a list of things you can choose from, or you can write in your own, but you can, if you want to, you can use Command to keep your deadlines and your contingencies. That is something that going to a Command class could teach you. Talking about communication, also, when you're communicating with buyer's agent or listing agent, whoever's on the other side of you, when you email, make sure you find out if they have an assistant or a transaction coordinator. And if they do, include them on every email. Can't tell you how many times that does not happen. As a TC, that's frustrating, because at the very beginning, I send out an email telling who I am. Please include me in all emails, and then I don't get included. But, so make sure you always include those assistants or those TCs, because it's important. Sometimes they can answer a question and they can get back to you faster than the agent can at times. Always stay professional. Timeliness, communication, and professionalism are very important through all of this. That's where you talk about command, where you can put in your contingency. All right, any ahas, any questions about the seller's timeline? Documents that go with it, or people that are
Why
involved.
you put like that, so you can see like and just focus on, you know, would that letter go to the buyer and seller and, you know, just
Yeah.
focus on that to
Yeah.
make sure everything, you know, got
It's not-
yourself calm
Yeah.
and to communicate.
Right.
with them.
I have a buyer transaction checklist and a seller
Uh-huh.
transaction checklist. And there's a lot of similarities in there, a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
the same things in there, but there are some key differences.
Mhm.
And in there I have, you know, EMD due, and then I put in the date that it's due, inspection, and then who I need to send it to, or who I'm expecting it from is in my checklist. Any type of inspections, that's, I include what I'm supposed to be getting and who I'm supposed to be getting it from and who I'm supposed to be getting it to,
Right,
because that, you can forget who, all
Yeah.
the people that it needs to get to. Are we good online? Any questions?
We're good. I'm good.
About, and we've talked about this a lot, about like risks. And we're gonna talk a little bit about how a deal may be vulnerable or how you can protect it. I personally have not had a transaction terminate. However, as a TC, I have worked multiple terminations. The biggest or the most often the reason it terminates is inspection. If the house just has a lot of repairs or a lot of big repairs and the buyer just doesn't want to even think about repairing or having it repaired or anything. They can, depending on what you check in the contract, you may have to send, and I've seen an agent do this, send the repairs request with every single thing, because I don't know if y'all have ever seen it. If you haven't seen an inspection report, it's like pages and pages and pages long.
30.
Yes, I mean,
40.
yes, it is really long and it's very detailed, which is a wonderful thing and a great thing. And they will point out every little tiny thing. And if the buyer is just like, I don't know if I can do this, then the agent will send every single solitary little repair that they need, that they want to get done. And most of the time the seller's not gonna agree to do that, but you never know. But that is the way that it can terminate, is if the buyer's not willing to, move forward with it, or if they ask for repairs and the seller says, no, I'm not doing the repairs, or I'm not offering a credit. That's a way it can terminate. Or if they won't offer enough credit. So it's really important for you to talk to your buyers ahead of time. Find out from them what
they think they can handle as far as repairs and look closely when you're viewing the home and showing the home. And see if you can tell, you know, some things you can't tell, but it's important to talk to them, let them, you know, tell you what they feel like they can handle as far as repairs. Are they a handy person or would they have to hire people to do it? That's when having contractors come in and give them quotes so they know what they're, you know, getting into, the price that they're getting into in order to do the repairs or how much credit they want to ask for. But that's a big one that causes terminations. Are there any other things that you can think of how a deal might be at risk of falling apart?
But appraisal of,
Yep.
yeah, even if they have an appraisal gap, maybe it's not enough to cover.
Yeah. Yeah, like if they, waive part of the appraisal gap, it's not enough, yeah. And you can't, they can't come to an agreement of either bringing the price down or meeting in the middle or, yeah. That can be another big one. So you want to make sure, if you're the listing agent, you want to make sure you price the home reasonably. You need to maintain a good relationship with the other agents on the other sides. Why is it important to maintain a good relationship with the other agent?
Maybe working a lot.
Yeah, you're gonna be working together and there's probably gonna be, there could be times where you're gonna need to renegotiate. And if you come at them with a chip on your shoulder or a bad attitude, then they're not gonna negotiate with you. So you wanna keep it professional at all times, no matter what happens, keep it professional. And remember that you're representing either your buyer or your seller. And then communicating quickly and effectively can help also with contracts not terminating. But unfortunately, some deals will still close. Could be that there's like severe issues with the house. And you know, your buyer just cannot take that on. So, you know, it's going to terminate at that point. But that's a reason that we say to wait to order the appraisal so that there's not more that the buyer has to pay for. And they're paying for an appraisal on a house that they're not even gonna buy. And then also making sure that you've got your documents, you're getting them signed in the right time period, and make sure you're staying in your deadlines. Let's see. Again, always act in your client's best interest, even when it seems to conflict with your own. You are representing them. And so you need to make sure that they're treated fairly and they get what they want. Any other questions with that? All right, that covers all of the timelines and the deadlines. So before we move on, are there any questions? Anything I did not cover in timelines that you guys want to ask? Right, we're all good. Do we need a break? Nope. All right, let's keep moving then. All right, now we're going to talk about how the clients feel like their experience with you was. We want to make sure it's effortless and that they feel like they were cared for and that you were on top of things. Okay, so you always want to make sure you make them feel special, basically. And the more that they like you and the more that you have made them feel good, the more they're going to refer you to other possible clients. And that's how you'll get more business. And the three ways that you can get. Let's see. Sorry, three ways you can get it is repeat, referral, and reviews. In order to get repeat business, you need to build your relationship with your clients. And, you know, treat them with respect and then continue to nurture that relationship after closing. You know, there are multiple ways that you can reach out and touches that you can do to keep in touch with your clients. Because if you don't, then 5 years down the road, they might go to sell again and they won't use it again. But if you've kept in touch with them and kept the relationship going well, then hopefully they'll use you again. Also is asking for referrals. Ask clients, ask family, ask friends. Do you know of anybody who is thinking about selling or thinking about buying? And then ask for their information and contact them. And then the other one is reviews. Once you've closed, you always want to ask your clients for a review. All right, I don't know if this is on.
Where do people you typically, place reviews, which is most common here?
Where to put them on social media.
Oh, social, okay,
Yeah.
more than like
Or-
Google or.
Yeah, you can do Google reviews. What was it that, I cannot remember the name of the agent, an agent just shared with me yesterday how she gets reviews. But yeah, there's different, programs out there that you could get reviews from. All right, so for asking for referrals, first of all, you have to ask. You know, I mean, you just have to be open to talking to people, talking to your family, talking to your friends, talking to your clients, and asking them for referrals. I have some samples in here of things that you can say. My business relies on referrals. If you know anyone that is looking to buy or sell, I'd be so grateful if you could know. Another way to say it is I would appreciate the opportunity to help your friends and family members buy or sell their homes. Thank you. I intend to build a relationship of trust between us so that when you think of real estate, you think of me. If you wouldn't mind, please tag me on social media anytime one of your friends posts about needing a real estate agent. Or I'm going to offer you an amazing service for you to refer me to your friends and family. If you don't, I'm going to feel I did something wrong and would need to talk to you about it, about it to do better. So there's all kinds of ways that you can approach that and ask for referrals. You could also ask for reviews. And then place them on social media. They don't want to communicate what it's like to work with you, but they can also generate leads. Because if you put out, you know, referral, somebody said wonderful things about you, working with you on social media, then one of their friends might see it and be like, oh, I actually talked to that real estate agent. So it just kind of lets everybody know that you're a real estate agent and that you're doing a good job. And you want to put that out there, that you're doing a good job. But the most important thing you can do to get a good review is to give value and to make sure you have a good relationship with your clients. Right, and for referrals. So we talked about referrals and repeat business. You just need to stay top of mind with them. And you want to make sure you're the real estate expert of choice, that they want to refer you or they want to come back to you and give you repeat business. I will say, just to throw this out here, that TCs don't do the ongoing touches after the transaction has closed. So that's something that you're gonna wanna really work on and think about, and what's the best way for you to do that. Because that's not something that they will ask you to do. All right, let's put on the buyer's shoes for a minute. What would you find helpful in the first year of owning a new home? What would you like to get from your agent? Like
Maybe like-
within the first year of owning your home?
Yeah, maybe like a seasonal like schedule of common like maintenance things you should.
Oh,
take
that's
care of.
great, yeah, that's a great idea. Yep, that would be good. Of course, a house, housewarming gift, a closing gift, when you close. Referrals to contractors, if they're new to the area, it could be helpful to give them a list of doctors, dentists, play groups. Things like that, that when you move to a new area, you have to change all of that. So you want to help them in that way. You could send them an anniversary, like a house anniversary card, or when they're at a year, they've been in their house for a year. And then you could also send them an update on neighborhood sales.
Birthday. No,
What was that?
anniversary.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, right. So that, they can keep track. Okay, well, it's my house, is the value going up? What are the values in my neighborhood? What are the home values in my neighborhood? They would, I think, enjoy receiving those. All right, what about in after they've bought in say 5 to 7 years? What would they appreciate getting from you? Again, maybe the value of their home. Current interest rates would be good, just in case
Keep
they're
them
thinking
updated.
about, keep them updated on the market. You never know when they might be thinking about selling and
Yeah.
moving again. So you want to keep them updated of what's going on in the market. If a seller moves away from your area, should you just drop them and not be in touch with them anymore? Yeah. Yeah, you might get referral business. That's exactly right. Yeah. So you want to keep in touch with them. Maybe if they moved away, send them a nice little housewarming gift when they get there. And then, yeah, just keep in touch so you can get referral business from them. Why is it important? Why is it important to keep a good relationship with the agent on the other side? What information, how could that benefit you after the transaction has closed?
Well, if you might have a chance to work with them again, like I said, they're the seller and you're the buyer and they know they like working with you, they might choose your offer.
Right, yeah, because I know you're easy to work with and you're professional. Yep. They might give you, if they have a new listing coming up later, they might contact you and give you information early on that, see if you have a buyer for that listing. And also it helps, to learn from an experienced agent, if you keep in contact with them. You could get referrals possibly from them, but also you could build your downline. They work, for another brokerage, and you build a relationship with them and talk to them how great it is to be at KW, and bring them to a meeting or bring one onto our brokerage, then they could be a part of your downline. Some ways to follow up with that other agent is you could send them a handwritten thank you card, enjoyed working with you. You were very professional and made the transaction very smooth. Again, you could invite them to training and just share information with them about KW. Follow-up. think that's what we just talked about was the, following up with your clients afterwards and following up with the agents that you worked with afterwards. Again, there are ways in command for you to do follow-ups and touches with your clients. I know there are command classes that they give here. I encourage you to go to those, learn as much as you can about command and how you can use it to your benefit. You can follow up. Right, anything anybody wants to share of all the stuff that we went over today? I hope I didn't go too fast.
I've been out for a long time, so I need to catch up.
Yeah.
Gone for a long time.
Oh, okay.
6 months, just got back, so I need to try to catch up with
Catch
all the
up.
classes we have
Yeah.
here.
It's hard
Updating.
when you leave for a while, it kind of leaves
Yeah,
your brain,
I
doesn't
know,
it?
I know,
Yeah.
a lot of things changed, so
Right,
the
yeah.
contract and everything, I haven't gone to
Mhm.
see what the update,
Right, right.
and plus all the situation that they have right now, I need
I
to
know.
know more.
Yeah, and I feel like they're always revising in the transaction desk, the forms.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time I turn around, it's like, that's the wrong revision. I'm like, darn it. Yeah. All right, see. Those are your daily success system that you should be using and going through. This is your warning, do not call list, just a reminder about do not call or contact people that are on the do not call list to make sure you're checking that regularly. Know the laws. Check before you call and update regularly. If you're in violation. If I'm not in the instructor drop down, I can put my name up here. And put my- Feel free to email. Go online, can see that. But my email is jtunstall@kw.com. Questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer if I can. As I said before, I am a transaction coordinator. So I work with quite a few of the agents here in the office.
Here, this office,
I do, yes.
okay.
Yeah, I do. I
So
work
what
with
you
quite a
do that,
few.
my, transaction coordinator, or, I mean,
What do I do?
okay.
There you go.
You get that?
There's my flyer.
Oh, okay,
And you have it, right? up
Yeah.
there, Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So, if you online would like my flyer, you can email me and
Mhm.
I'll email
Okay.
it to you.
yeah,
I have, it's tiers. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and I put in each tier, what that includes and the amount.
okay.
So, yep.
I'll check it to see, because like sometimes I need, if I'm out of, the country sometime,
Uh-huh.
I got like last year. I sold the house and they, like the new home, and they built, and
Yeah.
I was overseas. And
Yeah.
I have a problem and I can't communicate. I can do email, I can do messenger, but
Right,
I can't do the phone by phone, you know.
right,
So I have difficult, so I need to get someone to continue to take my, you know,
right.
to close the house, so.
Okay, well, I can do what's on there, but you're gonna need to make sure you can still communicate.
Yeah,
With everybody,
And,
yeah.
and email's fine, but
Right.
it's just not the phone call, so,
Yes,
you know, because
right.
like, the phone is a different, you
Right,
know, we
yeah,
use
I
that. I can
understand.
do messenger, I can do that email,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll look through it and,
Okay.
cause I need to go again, so,
Oh.
and anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you. It's very
You're
helpful.
welcome. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was beneficial to you. Again, if you have questions, then let me know. And thank you guys
Okay.
for being online.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Jewel.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mhm.